him and the girl. Hi.
This is Bob.
How you doing, Bob?
Stefan.
Hi, Stefan.
Hi, Paul.
Bild am Sonntag.
Yes, and
So.
radio.
And radio.
Yes.
Got a bit of cold for the radio.
Is that mineral water fine for you? Like to drink
Dat
something?
is wunderbar. Wunderschön, ja. Ja, see ya.
Claudia, kannst du die Tür vielleicht aufzumachen? Oder?
Ja.
Das better.
Schlechten the tour with you, Claudia.
Great German.
Sure, man. Hamburg.
Yes.
And Schule. In Schule.
How many years did you learn it in school?
In school, 2-3 years. 2 oder 3 Jahren.
Great. Okay, we start with a new album.
Yeah.
The All the Best Song Selection. Did you select these songs by yourself?
Yeah. Actually, we had a larger selection at first, and we mainly just went on which were the songs that had been the most successful for the people. And in the end, we had to bring it down to fewer than we had. It was a bigger list originally. So 1 or 2 got left off, but it's generally, I think, just the biggest sellers. I think that's the selection, and then I help put them in an order.
Are these also your favorite, your personal favorites?
I think so, but it's very difficult to have personal favorites.
Yes.
I mean, somebody complained in England that "Give Ireland Back to the Irish" was left off. Which in political terms is kind of an interesting song, but it wasn't really as popular as something like Jet, something like that. So that's why we've left it on. It's a kind of all-round choice. But many of these are my favourites.
I miss London Town, one of my favorites.
You miss London Town?
Yes.
Well, this is what I mean. See, it's very difficult. I mean, I'm lucky to have this difficulty.
Yes.
You know.
That's it. On your new maxi of Once Upon a Long Ago, there are 2 rock and roll things on the B-side.
Yeah.
Made in one day.
Yeah.
Is it? Are you doing this kind of rock and roll often, or?
Well, tell you what happened was I knew I had some work coming up, and I was going to do a little bit of live television and stuff, and so I wanted to play with people, just instead of being at home and then you just suddenly go and work. It's not really good. It's good to get a bit of practice in. So I started having some sessions in London on Friday nights with just people, and we just had jam sessions. So I had along all kinds of people, anyone who was interested in coming. We normally got a guitar player, a keyboard, a drummer. And so I found the drummer that I'm working with now, is Chris Whitten, who's with me today. Anyway, we had all these jam sessions, and it was great because we had people like Nicky Hopkins turning up. We had Trevor Horn turned up on bass one day, So we had also quite a mixture of people. But when I came to jam, I expected that I would say, okay, let's do some old Beatle tunes or let's do this. But instead, I found that the only ones I really wanted to jam on were the very old rock and roll things, the first things we'd played in Hamburg and in the Cavern, and the really old songs, because they were the most in my memory. From when you're about 18, that's when your memory really remembers things. So I knew all the words to them, I knew all the chords because they're simple songs. So that's what we used to jam on. We jammed for about 2 hours, then we go home, and we do the same thing the next week. And I was having so much fun at it, I thought, well, I ought to record like this. I ought to just try this, because it's so easy. We just say, okay, A, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we do the song, and everyone would just fall in, and the guitarist didn't think about his solo, he just played one, because they're all good musicians.
Did that inspire you of thinking of a tour next year?
Yeah, really, that's the basis behind it, I just thought, well, this feels great, just playing with people. It's what I like best anyway, So we decided to take it into the studio. I have my own studio in England. So we took it in, and we did exactly the same thing. I just said to the musicians, okay, now I'm not going to tell you much about this, but it's an old song. It's called 20 Flight Rock, or it's Lordy Miss Claudie or something, and it's in A. So I gave them the key and a rough idea, and I said, and if I look at you, do a solo.
Right.
Ah. That's right. Yeah, no, that's it, man. Do it. So we did it, and we did 18 tracks in a day. Made 18, which,
like
it was really like...
Isn't it?
Yeah, it was really spontaneous, and it was crazy, because the guys would say, hey, it sounds all right, We said, yep, on to the next one. We said, all right, Lucille, it's in C, 1, 2, 3, and we all just fell in. I say we did 18 tracks, I think, on the first day, and I think maybe another 17 on the next day. I played guitar on the second day. So just some of those have been released now as these special tracks on the maxis.
Yeah.
But it is in an album form, and I actually have an ambition, what I like to do with that stuff. I haven't talked to anyone, so you are the first person I talk. But my scoop. But what I would like to do, I'm trying to talk into the record company at the moment. I'd like to release it just in Russia.
Really?
Yeah, bit of glasnost. I think it'd be because no one's ever done that. They always release in the West and then goes to Russia. But I think it might be a really good feeling, like a gesture with Gorbachev and the glasnost whole thing, No, that's the idea. I would like to do that, is make this rock and roll thing and just say to the Russians, okay, you got it first. And then maybe we'll take it later, But I think it'd be a good gesture because they always get it last. Yeah. And they always have to black market it. It's always forbidden. It's always. But these are new days. Maybe we can make a good gesture of sort of glasnost.
And perhaps you start a tour in Russia.
You never know. It'd be great, But so that's my rough plan. I've still got to get the okay off the record company, see if they'll go for it.
Great. Has the record company a big influence on your musical freedom?
No.
No influence?
No influence on the music, no. They do on some people, but I've been around long enough now to I tell them what to do.
Yes. I want this rock and roll album.
No, well, I mean, as to whether it be released in Russia, of course, it's their record company, and if they don't want to release it in Russia, they could say no. Yeah. But they can never tell me what to record, luckily. Like some younger acts, they will say, no, we don't like that song, which is okay when you're starting, maybe. Although even in the beginning with the Beatles, we still didn't listen to them. Because George Martin, who was our producer at the very beginning, he had a song called How Do You Do It? How do you do what you do to me? I wish I... Which was a hit later for Jerry and the Pacemakers. Oh. And he said, this would be a big #1 hit. And we said, yeah, we know, George, but we don't like it. It's not our style. We've got to do Love Me Do, or we've got to do something like that. And he said, well, Love Me Do won't be as big a hit, This is a bigger hit. We said, we don't care. We just want to do our own style because we've got a very different style, the Beatles, and we knew we had to develop it. So we turned down some big hits there. But Jerry did them. And he had a #1 in many countries with that one,
It's Jerry's music.
Yeah, but it's more Jerry's music. Yeah, it was more his style than ours.
Do you have the musicians for your tour?
Not for the new band, no. I said this drummer I'm working with, who's with me today, Chris, is a very good drummer. I'm happy with him. The rest of the guys I've been working with on these promotion things I've been doing. But Chris is the only one I've recorded with so far. He did some of these rock and roll things you hear. And we've just made some other new recordings that he's on. And he's good.
We heard that you are working together with Elvis Costello on a new album.
Yeah, that's the one we're working on at the moment. So far, I've just written with Elvis. He's a good writing partner, because obviously after I stopped writing with John Lennon, there's a gap for me because he's such a great writer. John was such a great guy and just a great talent that to work with him was very easy. I would just, like on Sgt. Pepper, I was writing a song, it's getting better all the time, and John would go, it couldn't get much worse. And he put in these lines, he put in like a hard edge that was perfect, because it just complemented the thing I would do, and he just would help the song along. So when I stopped writing with John, he moved to New York. I'd kind of missed having a good writing partner, So I wrote with one or two other people. I did a little bit of writing with Linda, my wife, but she's not really a songwriter. She can help me occasionally, but she's not really a full-time songwriter. I did some work with Michael Jackson, again, who's good, but he's not. I don't think he's as good a writer as John, for instance, in my eyes, but he's very talented. So I was still looking, and I worked with Eric Stewart, who again is very good, but not the same as John. So now the latest is Elvis, but he is very interesting to work with because he has many similarities to John.
Are you different characters, Elvis? And you?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. You see, John was on the surface. John was a hard character, Inside, he was very soft, but he never let it show. Me, I'm quite soft on the surface. I don't mind letting it show. You know, if I get a baby, I can you know, this is the kind of family I'm from. We don't care. And maybe I'm a little hard on the inside sometimes. Just we have different personalities. Well, Elvis is more similar to John than anyone I've written with because he's sort of hard on the outside, but he's quite soft on the inside. So it's interesting writing with him. It's very good. We've written 9 songs so far together.
Are you also singing a duet perhaps on the album?
Well, maybe, yeah, but a little bit. But I don't want to get too hooked into duets because if you go out on tour and he's not available, then I'm stuck. I don't like that. You know, you've got to kind of book them for years. So we might do 1 or 2 duets. We sing nice together. His voice matches mine well.
Do you have other dream partners for duets?
Well, I do, you know, but I think at the moment I'll leave them in my dreams until I've asked them. Yeah, I don't want them to find out because somebody hears a radio interview. They say, hey, you know, Paul wants to sing with you. You know, I'd rather go right to them myself and say, you know what, I'd like to sing with you. But I know who they are, but they're just good singers, you know. American. Female, American, black, very good singers.
Oh, yeah, I love Whitney Houston.
No, it's not Whitney, it's not Whitney. I was asked to do a duet with Whitney, actually, but I didn't like the song. But I do like her, but this is somebody else. Anyway, I say, you know, it's no point in me saying it in case it doesn't come off. You know what I mean? It's best not to announce things that might not happen. But there is an idea to do something like that, yeah, with a female.
Can you tell us about the songs of your new album?
Well, I say so far, I've written some myself, and we've done a couple of recordings that are quite good. We're just in the very early days of recording. I've written 9 with Elvis Costello, as I say, whose real name is Declan McManus. Really?
Yeah.
Strange. What a strange boy. No, anyway. So I say we got 9 together. The very first one we wrote was a kind of like soul-y ballad that we were thinking of Smokey Robinson kind of area when we wrote it. There are 1 or 2 that sound a little bit Beatle-y because I think he was influenced by the Beatles. And I think when you get him and me together, it kind of... he sounds a bit like John, you know. He does some of... Well, just, yeah, his attitude is a little bit like John's attitude. And the others, I mean, they're just nice songs, you know. You can't really talk about them till you've made the record. Because, you know, you can talk a great song and you say, this is fantastic, fantastic, and then you make a crummy record of it and everyone says, oh, well, that was so, you know, you just talk. So I prefer to make the record, really. But we got 9 songs there. I've got quite a few of my own. I've got a few that I had from last year, 1 or 2 which are quite nice, so I think I'll re-record them. I'm looking forward to it. It could be a nice song.
Also, Once Upon a Long Ago.
Once Upon a Long Ago I wrote about this time last year. And that wouldn't be on the new album because it's been on the All the Best. So I don't really want to put it on 2 albums. It was for the next album, but we decided we wanted a new track on this to make it more interesting. So we had to make that a hit. We kept our fingers crossed on that.
Will there be McCartney 3 LP?
Yeah, probably. You know, I always liked that idea. You know, what I do is when I'm feeling fed up of making normal albums, then I can always just go and make one of those crazy albums, you know, which is it's kind of different for me because I'm sort of experimenting a bit more. Yeah, I'm looking forward to making 3, actually. The only thing about that is, because you're just working solo, sometimes it's you feel a bit like the mad professor, you know, in your laboratory. A little of this and a little of that, you know. You get a bit freaked out on your own, just sitting in the room. How's it sound? Sounds good to me. Okay. You're just talking to yourself all day, you know. But I do like making those albums, so I haven't got any plans just yet.
Did you hear George Harrison's new album? Do you like it?
Cloud 9, yeah, I like it. I like the first side particularly.
Yes.
I like it better than the second side.
There's one Beatles...
Yeah, When We Was Fab.
Yes.
Yeah, that's very Beatle-y, yeah.
Do you like the lyrics?
Yeah, they're okay. It's okay. I just made a song recently that... I think it's because it's Sgt. Pepper's anniversary.
Yes.
I think the natural thing for us guys, me, George and Ringo, is to think, oh, you know, it'd be great to have something like a Beatles kind of tune this year to kind of mark the celebrations. So I think each one of us have tried to sort of do a little Beatles tune. I'm a little bit off the idea at the moment. When I listened to mine the other night, and I thought, nah, it's not really a good idea looking back.
Yes.
So I may not release mine. I think George is okay. It's very much a parody of the Beatles. I think it works. I think it's going to be his next single. So I think so. In England it is, yeah. He's doing the video now. So probably will be his next single. I like it, but there's a slight reservation, and I don't know what the reservation is. Maybe it's that the Beatles were the Beatles, and that no one, even the individual Beatles, no one can really redo it. Someone once said, you can't reheat a souffle. You know? And it's a bit that. I get a little bit of that kind of feeling off it. Although I'd love to do it. You know, I love to work in the same style we worked in. But every time you do it, I get this little bit of feeling like we shouldn't be doing that. We should just be looking forward.
Do you still? What kind of relationship do you have to George and Ringo?
Very good, yeah. I've been seeing them recently quite a bit. We still have our sort of business interests together. So we see each other for things like that. We were just talking recently about a project we want to do, because we're, you know, because of business, it's not like it was in the old days in the group. Sometimes you get into hassles, you know. And so after the end of Apple, we had plenty of business hassles, and we used to argue a lot and stuff. It's not like that anymore. That's good. So now what we're thinking of doing is trying to make this film called The Long and Winding Road, which is like the Beatles story, you know, all the footage, and we would talk about it, and we would explain what was going on there and all of this, and maybe put some new footage in to show what's happening now, some of the best of our new footage, and make it like a complete Beatles thing, but maybe a movie, maybe even some new music.
And are you also be in the movie as an actor?
Well, I don't know about as an actor. Maybe it's more of a kind of documentary.
Yes.
Where, you know, like The Last Waltz?
Yes.
Where the band talked about their early days and stuff. Maybe we could make a similar kind of thing with us, only with more. We all of us, we have things like, for instance, we have home movies that no one's ever seen. You know, which is early Beatle footage. It's film of. Out at John's house, you know, and him wandering around, and you've only ever...
We visit you.
Yeah, but I mean, it was like, you know, when you're making a photo session and someone pulls out a camera and just takes a little bit for their own fun. We've got a lot of material like that, you know, and some of it's great. And obviously, as time goes by, it looks better and better, because it sort of looks more historical, you know. So, wow, did we ever do that? You know, I mean, I've got some film. Do you ever remember in the early Beatle days of us in silly bathing costumes?
Yes.
Striped bathing costumes, red and things, and hats, like old-fashioned.
It's a poster.
It's a poster, yeah. Well, when we made that poster, somebody also took some film of that. So I've got some film of John doing a little Charleston dance. It's a great film. So we could maybe include all of that, special film like that, into a big special Beatles film. So we're talking about doing that at the moment.
When to be released? Next year?
Oh, don't ask me. We haven't even started it yet. I mean, it could take forever. But the fact that we're talking about starting it is something, you know. We'd have to, it'd be a long job, you know.
So it's possible to...
maybe in a couple of years.
And perhaps with 1 or 2 new songs together with George and Ringo.
Yeah, that's the idea, you know, that we're talking about. I can't promise that it's going to work, you know. I mean, we haven't tried to do it. If we try and it's a bad song, then it won't be released. But we're talking about trying that, so you can see the relationships are getting better.
Yeah.
You know, because there was a time when we wouldn't have even considered that. We just, I'm not, you know, in our argumentative period. But our relationship is much better now, so I think, yeah, maybe I could write something with George.
Great. What is your...
Take time for a commercial break. Alka-Seltzer. Slip, slip. Pling, pling. Ah, that's better. Alka-Seltzer. Feels good to me.
How do you live private? Are you living in a countryside?
Yeah, we live in the country, and one of the good thing about my fans is that they do seem to understand that I like privacy. So when I come here, I'll sign autographs, and I do that because this is my work, you know. I don't mind, and I'll sign all day, or I sit and talk to people and sort of do. I'm happy to do that. But when I'm off, and most of my fans understand that. Well, see, I've got kids to bring up. And if around my children there's always people going, hey, Pop, then it's not a good way to bring children up, you know, it makes them crazy. So I think most of the fans understand that, and they leave us alone at home.
Can you tell me one day of Paul McCartney's life?
Oh,
Daily Mirror.
well,
Are
it
you getting
depends really what I'm doing. I'm getting up generally each morning.
up? What time?
Most mornings I get up. It depends if it's a school morning. I've got to see the kids to school, you see, like most parents. So in the mornings I get up about 8 o'clock and I see the kids to the school bus. Then I take one of my other kids to the school. And I sometimes have a jog. I like to jog in the mornings. Through the countryside. It's quite nice. It's not like serious exercise. It's more like when you were a kid, just running through the woods, you know. I like that. And then I write some songs, or I go to work. Or work, I go to the studio mainly to make records. Or sometimes I go to London and maybe do an interview or a video or little business. Just a little business, not too much.
Do you know the people in your neighborhood?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we live in a village, you know, so you know them all.
Are there friends?
Yeah.
Some of them.
Friends, all the other children, the parents. No, they don't. It's not like that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, once they get to know you, it's like you now. You're not going crazy. You know, you just...
Inside, we go crazy
Well, maybe,
inside.
I don't know, inside. No, but you know what I mean. Most people, even if they're very sort of keen on you, they'll still just sit and talk with you, you know. So we know most of the people in the local shops and all the people. But they're very good. You know, some people come around to the area and some fans sometimes say, where does Paul McCartney live? And they say, Paul who? Well, I say, no, we like classical music. Never heard of him. So they're very good, you know, they put people off the trail. But it's good, we're just normal members of the local community. Well, not normal because we're famous, you know, so it can't be just normal. But they treat us pretty normally. Just the other night we went to see my son in the school play, you know. Just all the other parents there. It's great, we just melt into the crowd.
Will your children be in the same business, perhaps?
Well, I don't know, you know, they're quite musical and... Maybe one of these days they'd like to come into the music business, but I never forced them into it, because nobody forced me into it. You know, I really wanted to get into it. And I think if I forced them and they came into it and then they didn't like it or they had problems, then I'd feel to blame. So I'd rather just help them with music at home. You know, we play little bits and pieces. And I just say to them, that's good, you know, wow, you could be on records, you know, you could be good. And they listen to me.
Yesterday.
Well, who knows, you know. But they're good, you know, they're musical, and maybe one of these days they'll get in music, I don't know.